President Biden saying that officials are now investigating whether there is a link between the deadly terror attack in New Orleans and the Tesla Cybertruck explosion that happened outside of Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. This is some new video of that explosion. You see it there outside the Trump Hotel. The driver of that vehicle was killed. 7 others were injured. And we now know that that Cybertruck was rented in Colorado.
We are learning from our John Miller that according to multiple law enforcement officers, this person who died in this attack, the driver of the Cybertruck, has a military background. Now, authorities say they do know the name of this driver, but they are not releasing this person's identity until they notify the next of kin. But they did say that this person rented the Cybertruck in Colorado via Turo, drove the Cybertruck down to Las Vegas, and was in Vegas for about an hour before it pulled in front of Trump Tower in the Valet area when that explosion happened. We were able to see video that they released that shows the explosives that were contained inside. Right there you can see the Tesla bed, the Cybertruck bed. And some of those explosives included fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel. And all of that was connected to a detonation device that was controlled by the driver. Now, what's incredible that the sheriff pointed out is that the explosion was really contained to the Cybertruck because of the way that the Cybertruck is built. Apparently, the explosion went upwards, not outward, and so none of the glass at the Trump Tower was broken. 7 people were injured with minor injuries, but all of them are okay, and they have been released from the hospital. Now, Las Vegas police believe this was an isolated incident. They are not willing to say at this point that it is connected to the New Orleans incident, but they are investigating. And it is unusual that both drivers did use the Turo app to rent those cars. So obviously this is part of the investigation. We did really receive a statement from Turo tonight that says they're cooperating. They also said that neither of the drivers had a criminal background that would alert them as a security threat. Brianna?
Yeah, lots of questions here. Veronica, thank you for that. With us now, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. We have former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security Juliette Kayyem and former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis with us. Andy, you have President Biden confirming tonight officials are investigating whether there's a link between these 2 attacks. So we've talked about some of the similarities. What are the things you're looking at that could point in that direction?
Well, so far, Brianna, we have 2 not necessarily relevant similarities, right? We know they both went to the same rental car agency, essentially this online service that facilitates private citizens leasing their own or renting their own cars to people. So they both use that same service. And we know that they both have military backgrounds. But again, these are things that could easily have been coincidence. That's not to say that these 2 events are not related. They wouldn't be investigating that very question if they thought it was something that wasn't possible. And if it turns out, and again, this is a big if because we don't know that at this point, but if it turns out that these 2 individuals knew each other, then we have a very significant issue on our hands here. That points to a conspiracy, coordinated effort that spans a large area, right? 2 very different states. We know the Las Vegas attacker started in Colorado, drove to Las Vegas and detonated that truck there, whereas the New Orleans attacker started in Houston and ended up, of course, in New Orleans to commit his attack. So connecting these 2 would be highly significant, but we are not quite on the verge of doing that at this point. We need a lot more detail to figure out if there are actually any interactions between these 2 people. Law enforcement has many resources, intelligence resources, law enforcement resources at their disposal that they can push against to see if there are any indicators that. I'm sure they're doing exactly that tonight.
Yeah, and Juliette, according to our John Miller, both the alleged Vegas perpetrator here and this New Orleans suspect, as Andy mentioned, had military backgrounds, so they both appear to be veterans. Both electric vehicles, both rented on Turo, as Andy also noted there. Explosive devices in both. I think we should note that, although the suspect in New Orleans was not able to detonate them before police took him out. There's also potentially some differences here. So where does that lead investigators as they're looking for further concrete links?
Yes, I think the connections that you and Andy describe, as well as just the fact they're on the same day, not many hours apart, would lead any investigator and any federal entity to determine whether there were linkages. Was there some coordination around timing and methods and means? But there are also a lot of differences. For one, the second attack in Las Vegas, sort of you combine Elon Musk and Donald Trump and the Trump Tower, that suggests someone who had a political focus against them or wanted to make a statement about one or both of them. That's not a coincidence. Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and that terrorism towards them, right, and the violence that was perpetrated presumably because of them is a form of terror, of course. And we've seen the former and future president, also be the victim of 2 assassination attempts. So this seems different as compared to what in New Orleans, which is very similar to what happened in Europe, right? That in France and Germany and elsewhere, where a car is simply used to mow down a lot of people. In this instance, and also utilization of a gun and other things where you have an individual or a number of individuals who are motivated by terrorism, but maybe also in this case by other things. And that's what we will determine and what will be learned. Why is this relevant? It's a very different threat environment if this was coordinated for the nation. It just is. But if there are explanations for both that are limited to both of them, it does make the American public feel differently about the threat environment.
It certainly does. Ed, it's possible that law enforcement is poised to find out a lot of information because they are waiting on federal authorization to search a Houston home that they believe is connected to the New Orleans suspect. And authorities are saying they're hours and hours away from being able to enter that home. What are they looking for? How quickly do they need to get in there?
Hi, Brianna. It's really important that they get in there as quickly as possible. The attorneys will be assisting in writing up the documents and making sure that everything meets constitutional muster. And that can be done fairly quickly. I'm sure that overnight there's going to be leads that are developed. In every case that we have, the investigators work around the clock to make sure they're getting everything that they can. And I was often awoken at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning with the latest information. So all of that is in process right now. And my colleagues have said exactly the right thing. It is critically important that the investigators run down this potential link and also look at social media, look at any writings that they're going to find, and importantly, look at who his circle of friends are and acquaintances, people that he's been in contact with, and that information will come from the house. And then you can just very slowly and methodically go through each one of these individuals and question them. The other thing it's important in this case is it is such a high-profile case that anybody who had contact with this man will be reporting things to the authorities, and I think that's where we get a lot of our leads in a case like this.
And Juliet, the New Orleans. Sorry, go on. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I heard feedback and thought you were chiming in there, Juliet. I do want to note the New Orleans suspect made this series of videos talking about joining ISIS, also wanting to kill his family. He had an ISIS flag with him. Now, we do have these questions of whether there are some connections. Do you expect that we are going to learn that there were big red flags before this attack?
I think so. Part of it is going to depend on 2 things. One is the radicalization process. There's lots of, was it relatively quick? Honestly, it seems like what we know now, it was relatively quick, so that there might not be lots of tentacles to investigate. It may be also ISIS took advantage, or ISIS or people on social media, of a person who was searching for a cause to reflect his anger that he clearly had against his family. So when we say ISIS, there's a lot, or connections to ISIS. There's a difference between ISIS directed, which we saw in Paris, or or Berlin or elsewhere, and ISIS inspired, someone who is just finding meaning. It makes a huge difference for our purposes in terms of what are ISIS's plans here. Are they now launching another wave in Western cities and Western European cities as well as the United States? And so and it goes to the most important thing, which is New Orleans safe now, or is Las Vegas safe now? They are, again, going to hold a major event tomorrow night. I think they should. They will increase security there. Whether this is a person who felt that they needed to do this because they were motivated by the language and violence of ISIS as compared to directed, that's a very significant difference for the victims and for the city of New Orleans right now.